As technologists and entrepreneurs that are designing solutions, we have to try and figure out, well, what does that mean for the future? What is your take on the way what we're seeing now is changing the way systems are going to operate going forward?
Well, I just did supply chain management review does a conference called the Next Gen Supply Chain Conference that I did last week. So I'm not pitching the conference, but I had some great presenters from some major retailers: Gap, American Eagle, Nordstrom. We had somebody from GM. It seems to me and a bunch of others without going through the whole list, but it seems to me that planning was the first supply chain casualty of COVID. That you had no historical precedent to figure out how to plan your way through it when we shut down, and they had no historical precedent for how to predict or plan for coming out of it. So I think everybody's going to be rethinking their planning systems and what did we learn from this, and I think since we're not through it, it's going to take us some years to do that. I'm hearing from supply chain officers that they're moving from just in time to just in case. One of my presenters was Cardinal Health. Now, they're a different organization. If the Gap runs out of a blue shirt, nobody dies. But if Cardinal Health runs out of certain things, well, the health of patients is at risk. And the president of Cardinal Health definitely said that they're moving to a just-in-case inventory model. But planning, he said they're trying to get much more predictive about planning. So I think, coming out of this, companies are, before even rethinking, my network and do I have warehouses in the right places and transportation and all of that they're really taking a hard look at planning systems and saying, how do I get more accurate about planning? Because if your plans are off, kind of doesn't matter if your warehouse is working or your trucks are running. Then after that, all of a sudden went really ramped up in terms of e-fulfillment, e-commerce, and direct-to-consumer fulfillment. That just puts, it takes so much more labor to do that. You think about it, if you're in a pallet-focused warehouse and you ship out, 2,000 pallets a day that have 200 cartons on them, you just shipped out 400,000 units. Well, think of all the stuff in those cartons. And now you're doing the same number of units, but they're going out one at a time. So instead of, a couple of lift truck drivers moving those pallets, you've got to have an army of people. If you can't get people, that's going to put a real focus on automation. I think planning and automation are going to be the two big themes over the next couple of years. Because I do think we'll go back to the stores and we're seeing, foot traffic back in the stores. It won't be like it was. And so those problems, just those physical problems of how do I fill all those orders is going to require changes. And then again, I think planning at the upper level is really is really going through a transformation right now.
That all makes sense, and that's what I'm hearing as well. That the retailers that we speak to say, we have to compete with better service, but we're actually going to have to do that with less people.
Right.
Therefore, we need to basically tag everything to know where it is.
Right.
Is kind of one of the underpinnings of this, and then we have to have the new systems to use it. And so I think kind of how do I plan for the worst case and resetting and catastrophes? That all makes sense. What you talked about just in case as opposed to just in time. Did you get a sense from your speakers? What does that mean? What does just in case mean?
That means that inventory can no longer be the equivalent of a 4-letter word. The 4-letter word before was cash. But people are going to have to
Yeah.
think about, cash tied up in inventory differently in order to go forward, particularly in critical industries. And that may drive all kinds of things. In the parts industry, it may be the thing that spurs on something like 3D printing and additive manufacturing, because there are parts that you really can 3D print and 3D print on demand. I think it means bringing inventory in earlier if you can. If you can get it off of a ship. I think it's going to mean if you think you're going to sell 1,000 units during the season, and you'd gotten used to bringing 100 units in and then just doing a lot of reorders, you might be bringing 500 units in at the beginning of the season, and then doing your reorder. And again, in critical industries, people just saying, going back to the, if I think I need 3, maybe I'm going to buy 5, so I've got 2 on the shelf just in case.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Mr. Beacon podcast here on YouTube. You can listen to the rest of this episode on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed it, please like and share this video, and be sure to subscribe for more weekly videos. For more information about Wiliot and IoT Pixels, head on over to wiliot.com.